Hi, everyone, and welcome to another podcast. This is episode 23, and today we're going to be tackling some fundamentals of Amazon advertising. We're doing a three-part series on the fundamentals. It was the start of a new year, and we wanted to take some time to go back to what are the fundamentals of advertising and how do you get them to work for your business so that you can kind of understand advertising at a bit more of a granular level. So today it's just me. Hamish is away. I'm Sebastian if you're new. And yeah, today, like I said, we'll take you through the Amazon fundamentals. So I'm going to share screen and we will get right into it. So I've got our screen share up here, fundamentals, and the topics we're going to cover are the bidding strategies. What are they? Targeting strategies. What are they? When to use each bidding strategy and when to use each different targeting strategy. So the first place we'll start is on the bidding strategies. So there are three main bidding strategies on Amazon. There is fixed bids, dynamic bids down only, and dynamic bids up and down. Now, we touched in our last episode about what bids actually are and how they work. They're a second place auction. And this episode, we're going to cover how each of these affect that bid that we're setting that we mentioned in the first one. So I'll walk through the explanation for each one. So we have fixed bids. With fixed bids, Amazon does not adjust your bid amount. The bid you set is the maximum amount you'll pay per click, regardless of the likelihood of the sale. I'll get to this section down the bottom here in a minute. The second strategy is what we call dynamic down only. This strategy allows Amazon to lower your bid by up to 100% when it determines that a click is less likely to result in a sale. An example would be if you set a bid of $1, Amazon might reduce it to 50 cents for a less promising placement, but it'll never increase it above $1. Dynamic up and down. Amazon will increase your bids by a maximum of 100% in real time when your ad is more likely to convert to a sale, and lower your bids when less likely to convert to a sale. If you set a base bid of $1, Amazon might increase it to $2 for a click that has a higher likelihood of converting to a sale. For a click less likely to convert, Amazon might reduce the bid to 50 cents. So you kind of have these three different sets. I would say that dynamic bids up and down is the most aggressive. Dynamic bids down only is probably the least aggressive, and fixed bids are somewhere in the middle of those two more dynamic bidding strategies. The fixed bid section is when you really know what you're setting your bids and you really do know what they are. I'm not saying that you shouldn't know them for dynamic, but that's when you would use fixed bids. And also when you start to know the niche and the advertising space that you're selling into, and you really know what the bid needs to be to win those placements. So I did add a section here to talk about, which is about knowing what your bid should be. So the way to calculate your bid is really what can you afford to pay. And so there's a whole another episode that we probably will get into at a later time, which is, deciding on what each of your campaigns or each of your campaigns objective is. But today, really what we're saying is, what is your target for all of the search terms or targets that you are advertising on? And the way that you would do that is you'd work out your average order value, AOV, times your conversion rate, times your target ACOS. And ACOS, for anyone that's new, is your advertising cost of sale, which is just your ad spend divided by your ad sales. And so your target ACOS would be determined on your margins and what you think you can get a sale for profitably, depending on what it is, like I said, that your strategy is. I group these strategies kind of into three buckets for your campaigns, which is research, profit, and ranking. Those are the three main reasons that you would launch your campaigns, and they all have slightly different targets and target ACOS. But this would be how you would calculate your bid. So an example below would be if you had a $20 product, your average conversion rate was 20%. If you wanted a target ACOS of 25%, because that's a profitable sale for you, your bid would need to be 50 cents, as an example. Obviously, if you doubled your conversion rate, so in this case, the conversion rate is at 10%, but if you doubled your conversion rate, you would end up with a bid that could be $1. So you could afford a higher bid in order to get that. Now, conversion rate can be improved by a whole bunch of ways. Obviously, listing content, but you can also do it through placements on Amazon as well. The second is dynamic down only. And the example here that I've kind of already gone over is that basically it's the more risk adverse option there. We recommend dynamic down only because Amazon doesn't give us a whole lot of information on what the criteria is for the less likelihood of a sale or more likelihood of a sale. So we would rather have more control and only let Amazon bid down in the event that we are less likely to get a sale. Dynamic bids up and down, they could be helpful in more high traffic situations like peak events, but we would prefer to control base bid and use dynamic down only or fixed bids. We're in these two camps here, and that goes basically with testing. So we just have tested dynamic down only, up and down. The results have been less impressive than they have been for, say, dynamic bids down only and for fixed bids. So those are the three different bidding strategies. These are inside your campaign placements. When you launch them, you have to decide on one of these. So this is how you would calculate your bid, and then you can use either of these. In our opinion, is the best two to probably use. The next section we're going to touch on is targeting strategies and where they fit. So in our last episode, we did touch on the different types of ads that are out there. We touched on sponsored products, we touched on sponsored brands, and we touched on sponsored display. Today, we're talking about all of the different targeting options inside each of those different advertising types. So within sponsored products, you have keyword targeting, and I'll go through the description in a minute. You have what they call product targeting, you have category targeting, you have what they call auto targeting, and you have competitor targeting, and finally, you have negative targeting. So keyword targeting, as it suggests, is basically where you target search terms that people will search in the Amazon search bar. This is where a majority of your sales will come from, mostly, depending on your product and brand, but a good chunk of your sales will definitely come from here. It also has the best ability to give you ranking on certain search terms where, audience-based targeting and whatnot doesn't give you that same boost. Product targeting is when you actually have found targets within your niche that are your direct competitors. You maybe have a better offering than them. Maybe you've got better reviews or review count, and you can start targeting their product detail page. Now, the reason that's powerful is if someone lands on a product detail page, whether it's yours or a competitor's, you know that they're more interested than just browsing. They're starting to get to that purchase stage of the funnel, and so having that product targeting can be valuable. Category targeting, effective for increasing brand visibility across a broader product range, used when launching new products or expanding into new categories. We don't use it for launching new products because it's a bit too broad until later in the launch phase. So not month one, it might be like by month 3 that we start implementing category targeting. Category targeting is less efficient because you can, obviously, in a certain category, you could have, an example would be inside honey, for example. You could have Manuka honey and you have standard honey. That will be all under the category of honey. But Manuka honey is a much more premium product compared to standard honey. And so you could be targeting, particular products that don't necessarily match specifically to yours. So this is why we actually have an internal process called our growth research, where we go and scrape relevant competitors and we filter out what isn't relevant and go after those. But this is a good way, once you've maxed out all of that, to try and find new and additional traffic to go after. Auto targeting, this is best for new campaigns or when exploring potential keywords. It's a good starting point to gather data on customer search behavior. So auto targeting is a great way to find new search terms that you may not have been able to find before. And it's also a good way to know what converts. Sometimes you think you know your category quite well and you think you know your search terms quite well. But at the end of the day, if you get a search term that to you, in your eyes, is not that relevant, but you convert and you convert profitably on it, realistically, you should be using those search terms and then harvesting them and targeting them more often. So we use auto-targeting like a research tool to find new search terms and new product ASINs to go after. You have competitor targeting. So competitor targeting means you can target, obviously, the product detail pages of competitors, but you can also target brand names. So you can target your competitors' brands. And finally, you have negative targeting. So implement when refining your campaigns to exclude irrelevant searches or products used to improve ad relevance and reduce wasted spend. So negative targeting is basically saying, I don't want to show up for certain search terms. There's 2 different types, and we'll cover this in more detail in the next episode, but there's basically what they call a phrase negative and an exact negative. An exact negative will just negative out the keyword as it exactly matches. A phrase will match anything that has that keyword in it. So think of something like running shoes for adults. If I was selling running shoes for kids, I wouldn't want to show up for any of the adult keywords because these are for kids, not for adults. So I could take the word adult and put it as a negative phrase, and that would eliminate any of the search any of the adult search terms that would show up. So that's a good example of how you would use it. So that's the breakdown of what's in each of these, and negative matching in particular would be important as well if you're doing a lot of research. So because you'll end up with a lot of search terms that are not relevant or maybe never will be, and you'll end up with a bit of wasted spend. So you use negative targeting to help keep that in check, under control. So they're the main basic targeting types within sponsored products. I'll move over to sponsored brands. Sponsored brands is very similar. It has all of the same functionalities basically as sponsored product. It does have a thing here called theme targeting, which is relatively new to sponsored products. But basically this is like an auto campaign, like auto targeting inside sponsored products. So the thing to note with theme targeting and auto targeting is it can show for keywords and for ASINs, like on product detail page. So it is very loose in the way that it can target, very broad in the way that it can target. I will also say with the theme targeting, we haven't had very good results with that for sponsored brand, and so we don't use that a whole lot. Sponsored brand really, is reserved for brand awareness and really, in our view, around different stages of the funnel. So if you have certain keywords where people will be searching for, so for example, in the running shoes example I used before, if someone's searching for the word shoe, that's really broad. They could be looking for, high heels, or they could be looking for running shoes. They could be looking for all different types of shoes. But the word shoe, is very generic in nature. That's the kind of place where you would serve a sponsored brand headline ad and show them that there's options that you have available to them. You can also use sponsored brand to target competitors, and you can also do negative targeting within sponsored brand, the same as you can do in sponsored products. So these are basically exactly the same, with the only exception being this theme targeting, which acts very similar to the auto targeting over on the sponsored product side. Sponsored products will convert much better, because it looks more like a organic listing, and I've touched on the benefits of both of these types in our previous episode. The last one is sponsored display. Now, sponsored display has four main areas, which is interest and lifestyle audiences, contextual targeting, in-market audiences, and remarketing audiences. And I'll just run you through each of these. So in interest and lifestyle audiences, use when you want to reach specific customer segments based on interests and behaviors. Examples could be, one of the categories in there is future movers, so people moving in the near future. If you sold boxes, targeting this group would make sense. So they're moving, you start targeting them in preparation before they move, and so you could use that type of targeting to go after them. Contextual targeting, used to show ads to audiences visiting specific products or categories. This could be competitors, your own products for cross-selling, or complementary products. So yes, contextual targeting is very much like product targeting for sponsored brands and sponsored products, but it shows nice and high up on the page, and it does show below the buy box on Amazon, which allows you to get a really good visibility on your competitors. The third one is in-market audiences. So this is people whose shopping activities indicate they are likely to purchase in a specific category, e.g. moving blankets. So basically their shopping, their browsing history and things like that are taken into account to say, look, they're interested in this particular type. The thing with these types of ads, and I'll finish with remarketing actually before I finish that thought. Remarketing audiences, and this is probably the most powerful within sponsored display, and that is that you use this to re-engage customers who have previously interacted with your products but didn't purchase, or who purchased and need to purchase again, effective for repeat purchases or deal events. So yeah, as I said, these are the most powerful, and the thing to note about all of these audiences is the difference between these and your sponsored brand and your sponsored products targeting strategies is that sponsored display are audience-based, so that means that they follow you around. So if I, for example, were getting targeted by this remarketing one where I viewed a page and didn't purchase, it would follow me around to other products that I clicked on to potentially try and get me back to go back to that listing. And so why that's powerful, obviously, is that I don't have to target all of the different competitors' product pages. I can just target the audience that's interested or that has looked at my product before, and my ad will follow them around to all of those competitor pages that they visit. So that's why that one's kind of more powerful in the sense that it can follow you around. Whereas these ones are much more fixed. Obviously, keyword targeting, product targeting, it is only going to target those ones that you're going after. So those are the main targeting strategies and where they fit inside the overall landscape of Amazon's advertising, sponsored products, sponsored brands, and sponsored display. Cool. So I put this slide together for bidding strategies and when to use them. So these are just some of the times that you would use each of these and when not to use them as well. So over here on the left-hand side, let me get my mouse here. We have the sponsored product, sponsored brand, sponsored display, and then I've just put a tick box next to each of them on when you would use them. So if you have a product launch coming up, sponsored product is where you're going to want to spend a majority of your money for a product launch. Only later, once the product's more established, would you start looking at sponsored brand and display. If it's a seasonal item, sponsored products and sponsored brand is going to be where you want to spend majority of your money. You could bring in sponsored display, but you're probably better off establishing yourself over that seasonal period with sponsored product and sponsored brand. Sponsored brand more in the lead up to the season, and then sponsored product once the season has actually started. So as I mentioned in a previous one, sponsored brand is very good for awareness. So using that too, because people start getting in early, they start saving. For example, we know that around Black Friday and Cyber Monday, people start adding to cart in preparation for the event. So using sponsored brand in the lead up to a seasonal event or a sales event, and then sponsored product after that. If you have high margin products, sponsored brand, and probably sponsored display, you could use there. Probably just needed to put a tick there, but didn't. If you have a low budget, sponsored product is where you're going to want to spend the most of your money. The reason for that is it has the biggest impact on your overall performance on your account. If you have a lot of SKUs, sponsored brand is where you're going to want to run your advertising. Obviously, you would do sponsored products probably as well on some of the more important products, but sponsored brand allows you to advertise much larger range. You can also send them to your store, so you could have stores with hundreds of products in each of those store pages. So it's a good use of how you would spend your sponsored brand, or your ad spend, I should say. A longer consideration period. So some categories have very long consideration periods, like electronics, where people will click around and spend a long time before they make a purchase. Sponsored products really is capturing the bottom of the funnel demand. It's really when people are ready to purchase and make that purchase. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't do it on longer consideration periods, but it means that it's less about awareness and more about capturing the demand at the bottom of the funnel. So sponsored brand and sponsored display is where you'd try and grow that more consideration period. And there's ways inside Amazon that you can measure that so that it's not just spend that you're spending without knowing whether it's working, or getting to the end of the campaign and realizing that it didn't work. You can track it along the way to see if you're getting the results you want. Bundles. So sponsored brands, very good for bundles. You can't actually advertise bundles on sponsored products. So sponsored brand is where that you would, if you had virtual bundles, so I'm talking specifically about virtual bundles, that you could use sponsored brands to do that. Repeat purchase. So sponsored display is perfect for repeat purchase. Like I said to you before in the last slide, that's probably where the majority of the value is for sponsored display. And then sales events, sponsored products, because high traffic, top of search is going to be where most of the orders come from. Sponsored brand in the lead up to the sales event, as I mentioned before, and then sponsored display for retargeting. If you have a deal on and people have viewed your product in the last 7 or 14 days, the likelihood is that they will like to see your product again at a discounted rate. And so having those on in sales events is powerful. And then cross-selling, sponsored products and sponsored display is where, if you had a catalog that is very good to cross-sell between, these are the two ad types that I would use for cross-selling. So sponsored products and sponsored display specifically. And that's basically the sum of everything that we've covered today. So in conclusion, advertising, it is tricky to navigate, and sort of going alone takes time. It's full of costly lessons. But as you can see, there's a lot to advertising. In the episode I did before this one and the one we're covering today, there's a lot of things to consider, and there's a lot of strategy that goes into what we do when we set up advertising. And so I am just letting anyone know that we do have an Amazon ads audit that we can do for your brand just to see where you're at. Now, they're not for everyone, but we do try and make them that they offer value at the end of the audit. So we didn't put any vanity metrics in there. Each of the audits we do give you actionable insights that you can take immediately. The other two things I wanted to mention is that we do have 2 in-person meetups coming up. I think you'll see this in time. Yes, you will. We have one on the 19th of February in Melbourne, and we have one one on the 20th of February in Sydney. So this episode will definitely be released before then. This is the address, date, and time for the Melbourne. So it's going to be at the Work Club in the Older Fleet, and it's going to be date Wednesday, 19th of February 2025, between 4 to 6 p.m. Sydney at the Work Club as well in Barangaroo. I probably said that wrong, but that'll be Thursday, 20th of February 2025, time between 4 to 6 as well on that one. So that's all I've got today. As I mentioned, if you guys need help, please reach out. Please like, subscribe, and please leave comments on anything that you guys want content done on. We're always experimenting. We do have another series coming up where we're going to start doing some experiments and showing you the live results once they're done. So if you guys have any thoughts on any experiments that you run, we have access to a lot of data, a lot of different information that we can test if you guys have any questions. But until next time, thanks for watching and see you on the next episode.